Hello there, everyone, and welcome to SheRises, Amplify, and Thrive live speaker series, where we have spiritual gurus, masters, healers, thought leaders, change makers, visionaries from all over the globe coming here to share their insight, their wisdom, their gifts, their messages, whatever it is that they feel called to share with the world. We have them right here on this live series. And a huge thank you and just to everyone who has donated so far to the SheRises Foundation. My heart is so full. So when you come here, know that your donations go towards the SheRises, Amplify, and Thrive Foundations, where we help women entrepreneurs, women leaders, women in general all over the world just step into their leadership and really just feel empowered. So thank you to everyone again who has donated. And of course, this show isn't anything different today. If you love what you experienced today here with Samantha, please, please, please get her free gift. Her free donation gift. We will talk about that at the end of the show. But yes, definitely donate and get her donation gift. So as I said, today I have Samantha Santiago, and Samantha has a PhD, an MBA, and is a relationship coach. She's an award-winning speaker, spiritual coach, and author. She guides her clients in rediscovery so they can change the world. Oh, I love that. Yes, that's what we're here to do, change the world. And she does that by bridging religion, metaphysics, and quantum mechanic theories. And she also explains the importance of love and relationships so individuals or businesses don't feel lost, stuck, broken, or unloved. And of course, you can connect at any time with Samantha at www.confidencefaith.com. And today our topic is rediscovery in love. So welcome, Samantha. I'm so excited to have you today and what we're going to talk about. So I shared a little bit about you. How about you share some more about what your work is about, like how it came to be? Yeah, let's know more about you.
Well, first, thank you for having me. I am super excited about this and all that's to come in this episode for you. So my name is Samantha, or Dr. Sam, and truthfully, my whole business is based on my life. So when I was 5, my parents got a divorce, and then I ended up with biracial wounds, low self-value. I had alcohol addiction. Hold on, let me repeat these. Parental divorce, low self-value, biracial wounds, alcohol addiction, and I left God. And so all of this actually passed and I thought everything was fine, but at 22 I realized that it it was actually the fact that I was broken. So I ended up going on a 10-year self-healing process. I dove into religion, I dove into metaphysics, I got other credentials educationally, and then I started to explore quantum mechanics theories. And so through all of that, I stand on a very unique bridge, and I can talk to a lot of people about a lot of different things. But I wanted people to know they don't have to feel lost, stuck, they don't have to feel broken or unloved, because there's purpose, identity, and faith, if you choose to explore, for everyone's life. A lot of people forget that the past is a path. And so I really dive in to shed light, to not let people feel shame and guilt and confusion, but to really bring clarity and identity and just a trajectory that can change themselves and through their relationships change the world.
I love it. That sounds so powerful, what you do.
Well, thank you.
So you and I had spoken before,
Mhm.
you coming on here, and one of the topics that we talked a lot about was love.
Yes.
So I would love for you to share with everybody what do you believe the importance of of love is in love in life, love in business.
Yes. So love is the guiding rational principle for the universe. That's how in depth and important I think it is. And the reason being is One, love is, if you think about it, the only thing that man cannot control. It is something that is given and taken, it's also rejected based on that person. So when we think about love, it's spoken. You know it without knowing that you know it. It makes you just kind of spin around in a circle around people, wanting to gravitate, get to know. And then sometimes it ends too fast. Even if you have a long-term relationship, it's just like, say someone passes on, it's just always too fast. And it ingrains in you and it changes you for good or for bad. So in love, life, and business, it's the root of everything. So in my healing process, I found that there are actually 8 levels of love. God was like, here they are in the order. There's 8 Greek types of love. And so I took those and then I was kind of looking at them and God was like, bam, bam, bam. And there was the order. I was like, all right, no questions asked. And so I wrote them down. And as I healed, I realized that everybody's broken on one of these levels and it creates a void or a crack. And if you don't heal from it, you grow around it, which creates the inner child, but you also grow with that void, trying to fill it with something normally that's outside of love because it may not look as if you're missing that love aspect. And so love is super important because it breaks you, but it also heals you and it also helps you grow and change. So, I tell me how much more you want me to go
Oh, keep
into
going.
it.
Yeah, I know you're doing great. Yeah, keep going.
And so, okay, so just in general, the love when we interact with people is a energetic field. They did a study and this guy was meditating, but he was meditating on a child that he wanted to send love to because they were injured. And this guy was able to produce 20 times more photons, which are light particles, and in that moment, then in regular meditating for a longer period of time. The ability to share love is so great that on a subatomic level, it even registers. And so when we interact with other people, we're sharing love or we're pretty much tearing it down. Since love is an energy, it can't be broken. So when we give it to someone, we destroy a part of it within ourselves to give it. It's like a sacrifice towards sharing that love. And that person, based on your experience, can either accept it in a positive format or they can actually reject it and then they go about. And you and that other person start to interact with other people. And each time we interact, it creates a ripple effect. And based on their interactions, that's how you actually change the world. And I relate it to quantum communications because if you take a person and you interact, it creates something like a syntax in the brain, which is where wisdom creates. And so if you think about it, each interaction, you're learning something. You're learning something about your reality. And then that's how the quantum communication spreads because that information you've learned, say a negative sentiment because someone was rude, you actually share it with the next person. Like you could share it and be like, oh, I'm in a bad mood now. Or you can offset it and say, well, I feel bad for that person. I'm going to take a different path. And then you present love or extra love sometimes to make up for that feeling to another person. And then it just really entangles with each other. And so that's why I think love is so important. It really roots in everything that we do on an atomic and subatomic level.
Yeah, I'm like, I do resonate with that because I've had it where I've had like maybe a bad experience with somebody and then the next person that I meet with, I may not have processed it out and then I'm rude and then, I later that day I'm like, gosh, why did I do that? Like that's not it's not it's not their fault that I had that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I have had it the other way where I've had like a negative experience, and then the next person that I talk to, it's like I love bomb them. And they're probably like, they're like, this girl is crazy. She's all up into me. But yeah, I can like, and I can see how, being in the, like, most of my life has been in the field of psychology. So I know that every interaction that we do have, we are, we are creating new neural pathways with that, with that syntax. So that completely makes sense to me. Um, about how just a simple interaction causes a ripple effect in the world. So interesting. So, but what I want to talk about is you mentioned the 8 types of love. Can we talk a little bit about those? Because you had mentioned that we're like, well, let me ask this question before we go
Mhm.
into it, because you say like one of us has experienced that. Is it possible to experience multiple of those, or do we just kind of
Yes.
have that one big wound that then?
I think it can be either or. So I had five. So my parents divorced, so that's parental love. I had low self-value, so that's self-love. Then I had alcohol addiction, which would classify more so under mania. Um, let's see, I left God, so that would be agape or God love. And biracial wounds, which would fall under self-love as well. Or it could be inner circle because of not feeling the acceptance within the circle. So yeah, there is drum roll. There's God love or selfless love. Then there's parental love. After that is I'm thinking of the real name and then I got to translate it too. So then there is self-love, inner circle love, long-term relations. You have flirtation, body, and obsession. And so the top one is going to be your heavenly loves, whereas the bottom ones are going to be your earthly loves. And
Okay.
so you can, so I had 5 out of 8 for me that were damaged. My first damage was done with the parental divorce. And then, you don't know it, but like it seeps into different things. So for me, for instance, I had parental divorce, but then I look towards society or groups or friends to try and feed that wound. But then when I found that they weren't actually true, then all of a sudden it creates this next wound. And then you have, well, I have low self-value because I've heard racial, been in, heard, dealt with racial issues and then maybe not fitting into all the groups because I'm biracial and I don't fit the box. And then those two things merge into like the dating world, which creates a different type of, relationship or self-value issue. And then that gets fed to, well, I want to be accepted. So I find dancing. I used to Latin dance like a lot. I loved it. I
I
still
love
love
it.
it. And and so then I would end up my friends were a little bit older, so they would drink. So then I would drink. So then that's how the alcohol addiction got started because it fed my acceptance because I was with a group of people that were drinking. I don't know. I'm hoping I'm keeping the trail sane. And then from my alcohol addiction, my last step was I realized that I left God. I never took off my cross, but I just didn't go to church, didn't really pray. I was partying way too much. And then I was able to get to a point where I'm like, God, I'm not doing the right thing. I hate myself. I need a change and I don't know what to do anymore. And that's the time where I actually came back to God. And then from that point, that's where I ended up dealing with my 10 years of healing. And so that's how that one level of broken love can feed into everything else. And it manifests itself in different ways, like alcohol addiction or just feeling down about yourself. But it's really rooted or could potentially be rooted in a certain event that's created that wisdom of less than.
Gotcha. I'm like, I can, I'm like, as you're talking about it, I am sitting here thinking about my life and I'm like, oh yeah, I see how that, like, how it just kind of all connects. Like it's like it gets chained all together. And,
Hmm.
this causes this, and this is the cause of this and the effect of this. So, um, you mentioned inner child.
Yes.
Um, tell me how all of this ties into our inner children and what happens.
Yeah. So the majority of the time, your broken level of love is going to start as a child. And, it's not going to be like your parents slapped you in the face. I mean, maybe that was your experience, but it could be just you want to hold your parents' hand and they were busy at that moment and they flick your hand off. Or you tried to do something great, but your parents end up disappointed. And you feel in that state like, I broke the love. Like this is different than unconditional love. I feel the diaspora is the word that comes to me between us right now. And for me, I believe that children come into the world in their pure love. That's why they can live in bliss. It's timeless. They're unconditionally forgiving to you. And so when they break, that's pure love breaking. And so when if we as parents don't address it properly and explain, hey, this happened and this is why I did this, we as children begin to say, okay, how do I fix this? And then you might find the kids who are constantly trying to look at this, and they're trying to bring you happiness again, or they try to just brush off what you're saying and like let's hug, but they're always trying to reconnect to that love point. And so if you don't heal that or address the situation, the child continues to look for the fixing of the love because they can't figure out why they broke it. And so if it's not addressed, you keep growing, but that initial question of why isn't my love good enough anymore remains. And so like a tree, you grow around it. You get bigger, but that core issue is still there. That's like that broken love that I'm talking about on the 8 levels. And so you grow around it. And then eventually you call it resilience. There's so many times, so many people reject you or abuse you emotionally or verbally, but you're resilient and you keep going, or you're addicted to alcohol or you're an alcoholic and you're managing and you're coping. But it's tied to the fact that somewhere back in time, there was an event and you can't figure out why your love was good enough. So what I try to do is harness that. Yeah, that was a weird word to come out. Harness it, and then and then I show you like how that plays out and what the truth was. And a lot of people forget that their parents are also broken on some level of love and they probably haven't healed. And so they're dealing with their own stuff while in your eyes, they're perfection. They're feeling broken and they're trying to still manage. And so that's where you can sometimes get those rifts between family members or relationships. And so as you just keep growing, that core problem, if you never figured it out, if you never figured out why your 6-year-old self, your 15-year-old self got broken, at 35, at 36, you're still wondering, how will I ever be able to love or be loved if my own so and so rejected me for this? And that's how, and from my perspective and how I've learned that it manifests for inner children and the experience that carries through time.
Well, before I ask the next question, Danielle, I don't know if you saw in the chat
No.
to what
Oh, I
you're
don't.
saying. She put beautiful in there.
Oh, thank you, because I did not see that.
Yeah, so that tells me it's resonating with her. We are messaging. I love it. Um, so so now I'm gonna kind of, or maybe I have a comment to make, but like when you talk about all of that, and you say that you show them the truth about that, what that is. How have you witnessed like the healing happen? Is that like an awareness? Is that
It comes differently. So I've talked to several different people, and some people are resistant. They're like, nah, that's not it. And then they might come back later and they're like, so you may have been right. Or I did think about this and, maybe we could talk about this section some more. And I think overall, it's an awareness that comes. So most people live in that conscious psychological area. I live in the subconscious. Like, I feel comfortable. If you think of like that iceberg chart they have or whatever, like I'm underwater all day. I want some deep conversations. And
yes.
so coming to the surface is, I guess, that light of understanding a physical life versus a spiritual life. And so that's what I'm trying to do is show, I guess, the subconscious purposing for things in life. And it comes with becoming emotionally aware or spiritually aware, psychologically aware, however you want to call it. And then you come to a point where you can start to see things from different facets and not just this one direction.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. When you talk about subconscious stuff, I'm like, I am so on board with that because that's where the real change happens, right? We play, and by what you're talking about, I'm kind of relating it back to kind of like my education. I'm like, it completely makes sense. And then, like the subconscious starts to create these programs, and then we don't realize that we have this program that's playing. So at a young age my mom rejected me with love, and now as I turn into a teenager and I start to date, I start looking outside of myself to find that love, and then there's that program that plays, right, that says, well, you're not good enough to have this, you're not deserving of it. So then you have all of these relationships, or you seek out relationships that aren't healthy, right? So I love that it gets down to the subconscious level, because I truly believe once you get in there, like that's where the real magic happens, and the real beauty of all of that. So I did want to ask you another thing about,
Mhm.
because everything that you're talking about really sounds like, as you're talking about, I'm like, yeah, it sounds like, I'm like, this is like a loss of self. So tell me, like, how does all a loss of self relate to like all of this? And I think it might be a little bit self-explanatory, but I am just curious. I want to see your opinion on it.
Okay, so maybe I'm mistaken, but when I did my research, it's funny that you say that. So for me, loss of self is feeling lost, stuck, broken, unloved, or without your light after a negative event, life transition, or PTSD experience. And I actually started using it by myself, and I heard nobody else using it. And I researched it, and it was like this one lady from like 1987 who actually was the last person to use it. And we had like this much of a difference in using it, but I've never seen that term used by anybody else besides myself. So I think it's crazy that you used it because that's exactly what I call it. It is loss of self. So it is losing your essence or your true identity. And I use it from a spiritual perspective because that pure love that came into the world is your essence and your identity. And so that is loss of self is when you do lose yourself within an event and you're kind of essentially stuck at the other side of the event trying to still manage through life while you don't understand what your purpose is or maybe what your identity is anymore or even how you're supposed to function within the world and other people. And so that's how for me I relate it.
I'm like, I totally relate to that. Yeah, I mean, I've had experiences where I may be at the ends of it, and I'm sitting there going, I don't even know who I am anymore. And then
Hmm.
and this is my opinion, and I would love your opinion on it, but you know,
Yeah.
I I think that when you're kind of standing at that in that place of loss of self, then then the next thing is almost like you kind of go into chaos, because you're like, I got to find myself now,
Mhm.
right? But where do I start? Where do I begin? Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. That's what happened when I found out at 22 that I was broken because I wanted to be loved. So I discovered there was a difference in love. There's an earthly love, which is very physical, it's attraction based, it can be deep and fast and it can be hurtful. And then there's a heavenly love, which is kind of that person where you feel like you've known them for a while. They challenge you to become better. It's more stable. It also can seem boring at times, but there are too many things that align that make it unable to be a coincidence for life. And so I totally forgot your question. I'm so sorry. Say it again.
Oh no, I was just talking about when you're at that loss of self, and then now you're like scrambling to find
Yeah.
yourself, right?
Sorry, I
No,
zoned into this and I was like, I haven't talked about this in so long and I got
yeah, I
sidetracked.
love it.
But so I found that there were these two loves, and you just, depending which one you're in or any of them, you just get to this place and you're like, just like you said, what's going on? And for me and myself, it was a process of what do I do? I didn't really want to scramble. I just knew I'm not loving properly. I had had this earthly love, now I was in this heavenly love, and I wasn't clicking. Like, there's no reason after 4 months of dating, I should not be able to tell you I like you. Like, we got a red flag going on here. And as I processed through it, it just really came back to what were those programs I taught myself. And I didn't get to scramble because we ended up moving and I was isolated. So for me, I ended up having a spiritual awakening while I was healing, while I was isolated, but I was mad at social media. That's how I kind of was like trying to find myself, like, why are you talking to me on my birthday and we don't talk any other day? Like, this is crazy. And it was like my reality was crashing around me. So I don't think I got that ability to like sporadically look around. It was more like everything was falling at once for me.
Gotcha.
And so I was having to go back in. But for those who are scrambling, it can be very chaotic because you're always like, oh, maybe this, oh, maybe that. And, when you find out it doesn't work, it kind of puts you back in that programming again. Was I not good enough? Or why isn't this working for me now? Is there something wrong with me? And so it all just kind of weaves back in with it. I really hope that I answered that correctly.
Yeah, because
I
well, I
apologize if I didn't.
no, I feel like it ties into the topic of rediscovery and love. Like in that discovery process, I can't imagine it just being easy and seamless, right? Like now I'm on the path of rediscovery. Oh, everything is wonderful. That there are those blocks and those challenges that you come across, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I think the biggest one with anybody, I've dealt with a lot of people who are like spiritually transitioning, but they don't know what it is. Or we can even make it sound simpler. When you're trying to change and become a better person, you're going to say, I want to become a better person. But what's going to happen is you're going to be met with the temptation to fall back into the old person. You're going to fail and become the old person for a moment. And those are the moments where you have to say, transition is a process. I have to reteach myself. It's okay that I failed. I don't have to result to go back to this. I don't need to feel that I'm never going to get past it. I don't have to worry about people criticizing me as bad as it hurts because I have to reteach them just as I have to reteach myself. And that's one thing that I like when I talk to people and they're like, but this happened. And I'm like, yes, it's a distraction. Focus. And they're like, but I don't understand. Just focus, because the easiest thing for Satan to do or any negative entity is to try to pull you back to what you were so you can't elevate to what you can be.
I love two things. I mean, I love everything that you said, but two things I want to point out that that you just fall back to it in that moment, and that it's not forever. I think a lot of times what happens is that, I mean, we're all guilty of falling backwards or taking steps back, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the key thing that you said here was to remember that it's just in this moment, and I now have this opportunity to make a choice to step out of it. And the more that
Yes.
you do that, right? It's like that muscle memory. The more that you do it, eventually you may start to falter back and you'll catch yourself and instead step forward, right?
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
the other thing that you said is I have to teach myself. And I'm so glad that you said this, because I was like, "Ah, I have to remind myself of this too, that not only are we teaching ourselves, but we also have to teach the other people around us
Yes.
how, how, I'm going to say our new way, our new self, right?
Hmm.
Because I think that sometimes we also forget that when we're in this space and we're like I'm my new self, I'm shiny and new, like this bright shiny penny, that other people won't, they don't instantly change like that too, because
Right.
they will still kind of react to you as kind of like the dull penny, right?
Right. No, exactly. You're totally on it. Like a lot of parents don't realize that when you say you're bad, it almost internalizes that you as a being are bad. Whereas in my mind, I don't say you're bad. I say, dude, you're making bad decisions. You're a good person who's making a bad decision, which means you have every opportunity to fix it. right now and to change in the future. And you're right. I mean, like how we talked about the inner child and growing out into a tree, that's bark on the outside. Like just like any tree, like they shed sometimes. And you can't expect people to look at your old self while you're in transition and see the new self that you're trying to become because you know you can be that person. It's a very multifaceted, everything about this is very multifaceted because it's you, them, and the world around you that you're impacting. And so, just like you said, be that shiny penny, but just know someone's going to say when you fall, when you trip up, hit that stumbling block, "Ugh, I knew it was too good to be true. I knew you weren't going to do it." And
Ooh.
even for yourself, when I was overcoming alcohol, I did it dry turkey. So I was drinking Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Not I didn't get blackout drunk, but I was drunk. And after 4 years of that routine, I went cold turkey. I actually was at a party. I said, I think I have a problem. And that's how I found out I had alcohol addiction. It was one step below out being an alcoholic. I think it was the New Year's before I didn't drink water, but I had gone to a New Year's bar party. The next morning I woke up and was at, I think it was 10% dehydration. So essentially it's like feeling like the flu, except your skin's disconnected from your muscles. Everything's dry and like swollen inside. I couldn't move. I couldn't like call my dad from my room to the front room. I couldn't call outside the door. I literally had my phone. I had to call, my parents were divorced, obviously. I had to call my mom, and she showed up from the house, from her house, to get me. My dad, standing outside the door of our apartment, had no idea what was going on, and they had to walk me down to go to the ER. When I got there, I was passing out. And so when I stopped drinking, it was not an easy thing. It took me 5 years to get over the craving because you have to realize that it's not just the addiction, it's the triggers that are causing the cravings or the cravings that are easing the triggers. And so then in the process of learning all of like trying to detox your body, I mean, I could think of a drink and my mouth would salivate. And it was having to go in and say, okay, why am I wanting a drink right now? Okay, I can't do that. Why am I doing this? And I would have to break everything down. And I finally discovered how we talked about the whole acceptance thing. I got over wanting to drink, but then when those triggers hit, I would want to drink. And then I would start to drink sodas. And then I had to catch myself because I realized I was replacing the sodas for the alcohol. So then I had to reel back on the sodas, and I had people tell me, it's okay, you can just drink one beer. It's okay, you can just drink one drink. And I'm like, but it's not, because you don't understand how that can roll inside of me. And it took a while, and now I've gotten it where I don't crave it. I can identify when I'm stressing. I have my one Dr. Pepper I will drink only in severe situations. And other than that, like I really make a conscious effort to stay away from it. And so your transition may be the same, it may be harder, it may be even easier. I know someone, my cousin, she had alcohol, she was an alcoholic. And she said she prayed to God. She said, save me and I'll stop drinking. And she said within that moment, all cravings went away. So there are very different opportunities for you during your transition. So it's not just a linear situation. It can definitely like branch just depending how you're processing and how adamant you are and what you're doing. So don't get discouraged, anybody. If you're trying, just keep trying because you're going to get through. Just like you said, that muscle memory is going to kick in and like keep pushing.
Wow, thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that go through obviously not exactly your story, but like the hardness of trying to overcome something.
Yeah.
Um, I love it. Yeah, like definitely. Like we need to encourage people to just keep going. I say that a lot. Like sometimes I talk to people and they're like, oh, I'm in this thing again. I'm like, just keep going. Whatever you do, just keep going. Whether you're taking a big step or a little tiny baby step, it's still moving forward. Just move forward,
Absolutely.
keep going. So I think that's great. I think I'm going to say this is a great place for us to pause.
Okay.
And then because one of the things that you had offered to the audience was the gift of sending in their struggle
Yes.
for an analysis. So we're going to use this last half hour to go ahead and do those analysis, or as many
Yay!
as we can get through in the next half hour or so.
Okay.
Um, but but I do, before we do that, does anybody have any questions for Samantha? Like we've talked about some pretty heavy stuff today. So I'm just going to open it up to see if anybody might have questions about that before we dive into the analysis, or the
Oh,
analyses, I should say.
okay.
Say
I
that right.
popped open the chat. I found it, guys. So I'm ready.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to put anything in the chat, or if you want to come off mute, if not, we'll dive in.
Okay, so I have a question. This is Camille.
Hello.
Hi. So I actually I'm working with a client right now, and she is of Chinese, Taiwanese descent.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we both identify with is the Asian culture, just for men anyway. They don't acknowledge when there's a trauma, either to themselves or in my friend's case, my client's case, um, or to their spouse. And so it comes across as being very cold. Have you seen that or experienced that in your clients and research?
I feel like in roundabout ways. So I had a person who they were from Trinidad, and they had made their significant other food, and they got home, and these are a little bit different, but they got home and they threw the plate of food like against the wall, and they're like, what is this? And for her, she was like, I'm trying to make you something of my culture. And for them, it was just disgust almost. And so I kind of relate that to your client going through a traumatic experience and the husband being cold and crass, and I would, I don't know if I'd say disgusted, but I think the thing for your client to remember is that it's not about everyone else. So unfortunately, sometimes our significant others won't be as on board. So for instance, when I was going through my transitioning, my husband wasn't there with me. You know, he wasn't in that same mentality. So I felt alone a little bit. And I just had to keep pushing and keep pressing. I would suggest, if her husband's open to just talking about it, maybe she could write a letter and discuss it with him. From what little I do know, the I would believe that a traumatic situation would kind of harp on top of the strong aspect of the culture in Chinese culture. And correct me if I'm wrong. And it would be like a little bit dishonorable. Is that accurate or is that not accurate?
I'm not sure about the dishonorable part,
Okay.
but they have discussed the trauma that happened, and he still acts like he explained why he did that, but she's still very traumatized from the ignoring her, because she came to school here, which is how I got to know her. Um, and the trauma for her is she's very Americanized. And here in America, we have very different views. And so we have people around us that can be supportive. And so she expected that from her husband. And I had to tell her, I was like, but he said it to you. You're so Americanized.
No, no, it's hard. I get it. And I smile because when I lived in Ecuador, I didn't realize the cultural differences. And I liked somebody I thought someone was cute that was a bus driver, and they were like, that's below your class. And I was like, wait a minute, this is still real? So I smiled because I understand that concept. Um, I do feel like I have, your initial question was, have I seen it? I do feel like I have seen it where people are hard in accepting situations or being a part of someone else's situation. And if he is just, I did it this way, I am culturally this way, you are the problem because you are Americanized. I think that she may have to find a way to love both of what she is, or if she has to opt out of whichever she feels is necessary. Because I feel like if she wants to be with her husband, she may have to forego what she learned in America to sit with that stigma, or I don't know if stigma is the proper word, but to make that work, or if she wants to forego her husband so she can remain with the same blended culture that she's used to. And it sounds like a sad situation for me. Like, I don't like the fact that you have to choose. That's what I've had to do a lot in my life. But I think if she's not going to just focus on healing herself and not expect anything from anybody else, she may have to make a decision like that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's yeah, I totally agree. I put that out there too. So she's in that thinking phase. But thank you. I don't know of older cultures really, and because I'm American, so I haven't explored outside that. But thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I hope I helped.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you, Camille. Does anybody else have a question before we dive into I'm like the fun part? All right. I'm gonna give it to you to go ahead. I'm like, you can kind of dig through your pile and pull one up, however you want to
All right.
start. But yeah, let's
So
do
I'm
it.
going to sip water real quick. Guys, first off, for everyone that submitted something, I really, really appreciate you trusting me with this. I had fun for for on my side. I was very excited and very ready to help you. So I have five guests to go through. So I'm going to use nicknames. We have DH. We'll do DH because there's another D. They are struggling with narrowing arteries, hardening skin, oxygen loss, and a desire to pass on. Okay, they said this started in 2023 after getting COVID in April. So I wrote some notes down, and my notes is that April stands out because when I was doing my reading in the Bible, I actually started tracking the months. And we do 1 through 30, but it seems, based on what I've seen, is that you're actually supposed to do 15 to 15, and April seems to be the first month. So it was interesting because it's like a new year. And then I felt that the broken love was happening in Fellatio, which is self-love. It's love from self-value, confidence, feeling of purpose, and acceptance by others. The relationship issue that comes with DH's situation is self. And the relationship is actually labeled as yourself, but I felt that was too rude or derogatory to say it that way. But it's self. And so it's from what I see, it's from an intellectual standpoint to raise your self-esteem and to forego the aesthetic needs as we as people are spiritual before physical. Um, I actually had COVID. I had breathing issues. I couldn't walk 10 feet without being completely out of breath, and I have anemia on that. So I'm right there with you. The oxygen loss seems tied to faith in life or God's way. So, a couple questions I wrote down that maybe you could ask are, have you accomplished all you wanted to in life yet? The second question is, are you prepared to pass with no regrets because we are all meant to die beforehand, meaning everyone is going to die. So, if you did have this desire follow through and it was your last day, do you have any regrets? If you do, reevaluate that process. And number 3, are you using the breath to the fullest? Have you considered that this time that seems like anguish may be your actual purpose? The lesson that I wrote down is you are right to not take your life. You may be tired, but God comes to those who are weary. So maybe instead of asking to pass, ask for understanding and a peaceful time during the temptation of seeing no more. And the biblical connection I gave was with Lazarus. So I know that it feels in a physical form very hard to me. I read it and I'm like, that's a lot. And to hear that you have a desire to pass is very weighted for me. But just make sure everything's in line, that you have no regrets, that you're really doing everything to the fullest. Maybe join a support group, helping other people, writing articles, letters, whatever, and see, because if you don't know, Lazarus died and he was gone for 4 days and Jesus came and raised him from the dead. So it doesn't mean that now won't be different later. Guess 2, your name is Kay. You have a closed cervix, you were sexually violated, unseen and undervalued, and you had a parental perspective put upon you, and it started when you were 15 or 16. The broken love that I picked up was eros, or the bodily love. It's physical or sexual attraction and desire that can dissipate quickly. The relationship issue that you have is your body. It's physical. It's causing I can't even say this word, PHYSIOLOGICAL, if you need to write it down, but I think it's pronounced physiological.
Let's write that word down real quick.
I think it's PHYSIOLOGICAL. I think it's physiological, correct?
I was going to say physiological.
Okay,
Yes.
physiological. So it is physical, causing physiological need for safety within your life. My insight is that your cervix closed because top women can't be attractive on their own, but have to be based in body or sexuality. So you are rebelling physically to attractiveness because you are the boss of your business. And obviously, I did not read everyone's thing, so this specific person will understand it for their specific topic. I also noted that insecurity draws to strength and power to feed another's ego power needs. So they seek to control the greater power to feed the need for their own desire of power. And then you have always been attractive based on parental comments that were made, men's actions, but you were intimidating. That's why you were considered a perfect girl, a strong girl, etc. So you became undesired for long-term relations, and this concept may have bled into this area for time. So for a time being, the undesirable for long-term relationships is because you were intimidating, because you were beautiful, but you were powerful as well as equal as you were beautiful, which became intimidating. So it couldn't be accepted as a package because it was almost like maybe there was no need for anybody else, or they couldn't step up to your standards that they saw for you. The lesson that I had is you have to explore your safety in being beautiful and powerful. And the biblical connection that I found was Esther. She was a Jew, and she ended up pretending to not be a Jew so she could marry, and ends up becoming the king's favorite wife. And the king's right-hand man was going to kill everyone and kill all the Jews, and she had to go and stand up for her entire country, and she went in, or her entire people, and so she went into his court where he could have executed her on the spot, and she used her beauty and her power and saved everyone. So that was that. All right, guess 3, D. Your struggle is being seen, using your voice. You get panicked and you want to be invisible, and it started as a child. So my notes were that your broken love is filial, which is social love. Affectionate love for parents, sibling, family, close friends, companionship, trust, and shared with those of similar values, experiences, or loyalty. Your relationship is going to be your relationship issue is inner circle and others. which is social wellness and cognitive needs of this love leading back to belonging. So somewhere you stopped seeing where you were loved, valued, and most likely became resilient. And when judgment can be passed, it scares your inner child and scares you as an adult. You may have been taught that it is easier to be invisible at some point through interactions, responses, or emotions of not being seen, putting others first, and foregoing the space you should have taken in your life for whatever reason that seemed feasible at that time. Your lesson is explore how you are loved, have been loved, and love the choices that you did make with the best information you had at that time. So the wanting to be invisible is because you don't want to be criticized. The panic and goes into the judgment portion. The voice, it deals with just being invisible, so it's a smoother ride. And being seen is just because it's easier to not be seen than to stand out and cause a rift sometimes. Guess 4, we have nickname N, and they are struggling with perfectionism. It started 4 years ago, so about 2021, when they started their business. So their broken level of love is, I always say this word wrong, but philautia, self-value, which is confidence, feeling of purpose, and acceptance. The relationship issue is yourself. It's an intellectual issue on value of self and the esteem that could have been broken over the years, driven by aesthetics to create value. I actually deal with it too. I deal with it doing the same because I want to do my best, present my best, and stay away from rejection. At times, a wall blocks me from actually communicating clearly in certain media. So focus on the fact that you are worth equally in perfection and imperfection. So as much as you're going to strive for that perfect, your value is still just as great when you have a slight error, when it's not as great as it could be, because the content is not what you're presenting, but what it is in itself. So the essence of it is valuable. Therefore, it cannot be more or less valuable. Others cannot see your slight imperfections. I hear that a lot too. So really you're doing it only for you so that you create enough value for yourself. Again, it has value of its own. You are not it. So therefore it can be a slight reflection of a facet of you, but you don't have to make it you. So the lesson is focus on true authenticity through value of your own product. Don't be afraid on responses from others, and know it will never be perfect. So just get out the mandated information and then focus on the other stuff. Again, I struggle with it too sometimes. So you're not alone. I did not really have a biblical connection with perfection, but right now the story of Abraham is coming to mind. So Abraham and Sarah had to wait till she was 100 to have a kid. And when they had a kid, the son turned 16, and God said, go up to this hill several days away and sacrifice your son on this altar to me. So the son's like, all right, we're getting pretty near, but we don't have a ram. What's going on? And the dad says, God's going to provide a sacrifice. His son is about 16. He waited till his wife was 100 to have him. He ties him up, puts him on this altar. The kid could have fought back, but he didn't. And Abraham raised the knife to him, to this perfect specimen of what God promised him. And as he was about to kill him, an angel stops him and says, don't kill your son. The Lord sees how dedicated you are. There is a ram. And in a bush just short by, a ram had been caught, and they were able to sacrifice that. So again, maybe you have to do what seems like sacrificing your perfection, but in actuality, there's something sitting by closer that will be the actual sacrifice, and it's not you and it's not your value. Maybe it's something that you've been holding on to, and God's like, we got to cut that part off. And you and me, I'll relate this to myself as well. We're like, no, but that's part of the whole. And God's like, no, that's just part of the parts. So, all right. I hope that helps. All right, guess number 5. I went full out on this one because the other situations, it's not that I didn't do enough for everyone else too. It's just this one had more medical depth sort of things that I could try and dig into. And so this is what I came up. So guess S, you have dry mouth, dry eyes, deteriorating teeth, deteriorating vision, digestion issues, and cancerous thyroid nodulars. Okay, so this is started about 5 to 7 years ago, which is 2018 to 2020. So I really felt called that your broken love is in agape, which is the selfless love, and it is the highest love. It's the ruling principle of selfless love God has for us, we have for God, nature, and others. Your relationship is God, faith, and spirituality. But your situation did not ring out that you are broken in love, but this is a challenge for you to build faith and strength. And that was the only thing that came. My insight was water. So it's dry, you're lacking water and what some people would call life. So water is life. It's lacking in the talking and seeing zones, which actually allow you to experience life. So all of your ailments that you mentioned in your commentary were around speaking or speaking up. So the thyroids are in here, and then you have the teeth, the mouth, and you got your salivary glands in here. So everything that you're really dealing with is in here and then here. So again, it's not broken love. It's a challenge to build your faith and strength from what I was understanding. What truths have you had to share and you wanted to share, but you haven't? So here's some questions for you. What truth have you had to share, wanted to share, but you haven't? What communication or creativity have you hidden from others? As a test, how have you lived in the moments while lacking life, gaining inner peace, and using your free will of expression and experience? How have you lived in the moments with all of this turmoil going on? And so another thing is, has God asked anything you thought might have been coincidence, feared, or just not done yet for some reason? So again, all coming back to creativity, communication, letting something out and seeing it, right? And so the lesson I had was self-actualizing the transcendence of life without life. So if water is life and you're lacking it, how are you transcending this physical concept of life with a spiritual one? And then actually seeing the greatness of who you are within that, or who you are in your purpose. And it's interesting because, again, agape is the top heavenly love. So it feels like it related straight to Job. So Job, he had everything. He was rich. He had a good family, this, that, and the other. And Satan, this is the one time you'll hear Satan got escorted up to heaven by some angels. And God's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just roaming the earth, trying to take people out. And he is like, what about your servant Job over there? And he's like, oh, Job's great. Yeah. And Satan's like, well, I bet you if I took this from him, he'd curse you. He wouldn't do it. God said, go right ahead, but you can't kill him. You can't hurt him. Satan comes back again. He says, what about Job? You know, it was just too easy this time. I bet you if I take this away from him, so he's now killed his family. He's taken all his riches. He said, he's going to curse you. God said no. So he does it. Comes back again to God. And he's like, all right, Job, what's the deal? I bet I can get him this time. I'm going to give him all these diseases and leprosy. He'll have nothing. God says, fine. Job loses everything. Goes through this period of having conflicting friends who aren't really as helpful as they should have been. He's questioning things. And then he follows through. As hard as it was, he's like, I'm still praising God. And at the end, God gives him everything back, all of the riches. And so, you know, maybe with the cancerous thyroid, it obviously you will die. Everyone dies. It might be the cancer, it might not be, but the riches may be more in your spiritual situation and not necessarily in the physical. But don't forget that you can still get life without that life. You can still hear, even though you can't see. Your hearing's going to pick up. You can still eat. It just may be a little bit harder. You can still experience life through senses. And the thing is like for me, I wear glasses because I can't see like past this far in my face, but I can tell you sounds. I can tell you that's a piece of wood, it dropped and it should be in this part of the house. My eyesight, I can see different shades of colors so distinctly because I can't see. I was coming out of my room, it was dark and I had a visitor. They were standing in my kitchen and I was taking my kid back to bed and I stopped dead in my tracks because I could see the outline of their shadow within the darkness. So even though things are lacking, you don't have to lack in life. And so I found the extra stuff. So with the dry mouth, it led to the throat chakra, which is communication. They say a light blue color is good for that, or eucalyptus. For the water retention, it said dandelion leaves or uva ursi. So those are like herbal ways you can try and do that. As for your dry eyes, there's bilberry, and you can add that to eye bright and rose hips. And on your feet, when you're getting nice foot massages, on your second and third toe tips from your big one, those deal with like your sight. And then for your thyroid cancer, you can massage under your big toe for that. Also, I found that calcium is kind of what your body is looking for, and peppermint helps with that. And the last thing I found is calcium, which I thought this one was kind of interesting. Your body may need calcium, parentheses, strength, collagen, which is structural protein for strength and support. And so that's why I feel like it really emphasizes that it's not broken love, but it's a challenge to build faith and strength. And I didn't actually write it. I wrote the first thing first, the last thing I said first, and then the last one. So it was really like a full circle that it came back to the word strength at the end. So those were my 5. I hope they helped. Maybe you can let me know. I will email these to everyone that reached out. I'll send you your own specific one. And I really hope that helped. I hope you enjoyed it too. Enjoyed listening to it.
I'm like, I did. I thought that was great. That was good information of really tying back to the issue and where it really starts and originates. Yeah, I liked it. Woo, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for doing that for our
No problem.
listeners. That's so nice of you to do that. And then to also send the report. Does anybody have any questions, comments before we start to close?
Oh, no problem. I was looking in the chat this time. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank y'all
yeah.
for your kind words. I really appreciate that. I was telling Kelly, I was like, sometimes it's awkward to share what your insight is because someone might reject it or someone might be like, no. And, if you do feel that way from what I read about you, you can ask me follow-up questions or sit with it for a couple days and I'm there. You can just email me right back. But yeah, I appreciate y'all entrusting those things to me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that insight. All right, so we're going to come to a close, and this is also one of my favorite parts because you are also gifting, like you gifted us those all the analysis today, but you're also gifting another gift for donation, and it's your Rediscovery coaching consult call. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. So before I would even get to this sort of content with anybody, I would want to know what it is that they're going through. And what happens is I actually will discuss with the person what their issue is and get an idea. And then I give a summary of what they're saying, what I've heard, and then I give recommendations. So some people can't afford to do like coaching. So I'll give you a book that I've written. And so if you don't know, I've also written a ton of books. So I can give you a supplemental material that will help with that. And then if you want to do coaching, there's an option for the coaching consulting as well. And so it's a way for you to gain insight and then have various paths for you to move forward with it. Because the point is that you at least have that awakening of and the awareness of what's going on.
That's awesome. Yes. I always love when I meet with people and they're like, here's this resource. And I'm like, ooh, I'm all about resources and giving tools. So I think that's amazing. So if anyone that is on this call today or watching the replay, if you loved all the information that Dr. Sam shared with all of you today, please, please, please reach out to her, do the Rediscovering Coaching Consulting call so you can get more information and continue to move forward and work with her. And as you know, it does work on donation. So when you donate, it is going to a beautiful cause. It really is focusing on empowering women, especially women who are in marginalized or underserved communities who just need an opportunity and support for people to say, I got you, we'll help you with this. So please, please donate. Like I said, it goes to a good cause and all of the proceeds go to the nonprofit to help. So thank you so much, Dr. Sam. This has been so much fun. I mean, like the information that you shared is so deep and amazing. And the comment
Thank
that you
you.
made in the beginning about like with the iceberg and wanting to, and you're under, you're the ice that's underneath the water. I 100% relate. I like deep too. So, oh, this has been such a fun time. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that has joined us. And a huge thank you to everyone that will join later that catches the replay. So much love to everyone. So much love to you, Dr. Sam, and everyone on the call and everyone else. And until next time, we'll see you next week, everyone. Bye for now.